Predict, pick, and prevail in your fantasy football leagues with Nick Giacobbe and Nick Cap. From breakouts to busts, superstars to sleepers, these are the guys that will help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome, everybody. We are through with Week 11. We are moving on to Week 12, and this is PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, with the hopes that we help you prevail in Week 12, starting off with Thanksgiving and the rest of the 2023 fantasy football season. I'm your host, Nick Giacobbe. Joining me is my partner in crime, Nick Cap. Nick did defeat me in our matchup this weekend. Now, got lucky. He got lucky. I did not have a couple of my guys. They were on bye. I do need to state that by the audience. But Nick did put up a whopping 150 points, which is a very formidable number. So even if I did have Jonathan Taylor and Chris Olave, I think it would have been closer. But Nick did have a good week. So congratulations to him. He's still leading our league in the points. I think he's up about 80 points on me. So I do hope I see him again in a rematch in a couple weeks.
Yeah, hopefully we get to see each other in the playoffs. We're both vying for a spot. Neither of us got a bye right now, unfortunately. Even though
we do not have a bye.
We are.
Yeah, we the top. I would say 4 to 6 teams in the league right now are all kind of have a shot at the bye. First seed might be locked up at the moment, but it is kind of tight, at least for that second spot for sure. And it's very competitive. I mean, out of the top 4 teams, I think 3 of us are within 100 points of the points. We're all within 2 or 3 games of each other. So it is very competitive, and we'll kind of see where that goes going forward. And hopefully, our teams continue to thrive, and we'll see where things go in a couple of weeks. So Nick did get that win. Aside from that, I had a pretty I won 2 out of 5, but I think I had a pretty crappy fantasy week. We'll talk about the injuries, but the injuries have ended my fantasy season in at least one league. So we will talk about that. Aside from that, we are live. We're going to be live, I think, most likely every Tuesday at this point for our weekly show. The audio version will then go up on a Wednesday morning, but if you want to join us live on Tuesdays, we'll do waiver talk, we'll recap the previous week, give you all the fantasy content that you need for the week coming up, and then of course we'll have our live show on Sunday morning. So if you're joining us live, welcome. Thanks for joining us, and you could kind of ask us questions or talk to us throughout the show, and that's the benefit of being live is your question will kind of get priority over the content that we are also producing and putting out for you guys for the audio listeners. So you do get kind of first dibs on that. So drop your questions, drop your comments. We will answer those, talk about those during the show. With that said, if this is your first time joining us, thank you so much. We have a weekly show that comes out every single week. It is live now. It used to just come out on all audio streaming platforms and stuff, but it is live every Tuesday. So the live show will be on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, Tuesdays right around 8:30. And then we also have a live show on Sundays, also at 8:30. But the Tuesday show is 8:30 p.m., Sundays 8:30 a.m. to prep you for that Sunday slate of games. So our live shows are available on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. YouTube and Facebook is PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Twitter is PrimeTimeFFPod. Although we do appreciate you, Twitter watchers, you can't actually ask us questions and comment due to the StreamYard service that we use. So go to Facebook and YouTube if you do want to actually ask us questions throughout the show. With that said, the show, if you don't catch us live on Tuesdays, our show is available on all audio streaming platforms on Wednesdays, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. If you're on iTunes or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. We really would appreciate that. If you want to watch and listen to the show like you are on a live show, YouTube, PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon, so every time we go live or post a new video, you get a notification. And put a like on the video, whether it's live or not live. Drop a like, drop a comment, share the link with your friends and fellow league mates. Connect with us and follow us on social media, PrimeTimeFFPod, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube is PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Twitter is the best spot to ask us last-minute questions for lineups, waiver wire trades, etc. when we aren't live. I know Thanksgiving is coming up. We've done Thanksgiving shows in the past. We will not have a Thanksgiving show. Me and Nick are both a little bit busy on Thanksgiving. Nick is hosting the first Thanksgiving with his son. So no Thanksgiving show for us. So if you do have lineup questions on Thursday morning, make sure to tweet us PrimeTimeFFPod. So we're going to start things off with our Week 12 waiver wire, and the waiver wire is actually a little bit bulky this week due to the injuries that we will kind of speak more in depth in our next segment. So for our waiver wire, we always go position by positions. Let's go quarterback first. We have Baker Mayfield is owned in 49% of leagues. At this point, probably not owned in your league, but do have to state it. What do they have on Sunday? Should probably have the schedule up. So
Tampa Bay is at Indianapolis.
Okay, so Baker has the Colts on Sunday. Some other names here. Matthew Stafford's owned in 39% of leagues. He is going up against the
Cardinals.
The Cardinals, okay. And then I'll throw one more out there. I mean, who would you rather have here, Jordan Love or Gardner Minshew? I would want neither. So
Packers on Thursday or Minshew on Sunday against Tampa Bay. I
think I'd rather have Minshew. I think the Packers get eaten alive.
Yeah, I'd probably rather have the cross-conference game.
So out of these three, I think we've kind of been saying for weeks now that Baker should probably be on rosters. And I think Stafford should be on rosters too, especially with the Joe Burrow injury. I would go pick up either one. Maybe I'd probably lean slightly Baker, but I think either one will be viable for the rest of the season.
I don't want Stafford anywhere. He has not been good enough, in my opinion. He's missed only one game this year, averaging 14.5 points. Sits at the QB 21. Has not broken 18 points in a single game all season. So for me, he's not good enough for your fantasy team. I know we're talking about the free agents. There's only one guy here that I like, and it's Baker. We've talked about the upside of this offense a lot as the season's gone on, and you kind of have seen it sporadically. I know it's not been as consistent, but Baker Mayfield has one of the easier schedules moving forward and for the playoffs of this quarterback list. I don't think you should need a quarterback at this point unless if you did have the Burrow injury. So Baker's probably the guy if you want to go with someone the rest of the year. If not, you're probably just playing the best matchup each week. And I agree with Nick here. It would probably be Baker Mayfield.
All right. So now we have for your running backs, Zach Charbonnet is probably the highest priority waiver pickup of the week, I would say, and probably your highest priority waiver pickup, in the last few weeks. His role was increasing with the Seahawks before Kenneth Walker went down with an oblique injury. I don't think Walker's going to play on Thursday against the 49ers. Very bad matchup for Charbonnet. Then we'll see what happens after that. Some other names here, Ty Chandler for the Vikings. I think Madison will be back next week, so I'm not sure how much priority I'd put with this one. Kind of the same thing with Tajay Spears. I just don't really want to tighten. So the only running back that I'm really willing to go here and try to get is Zach Charbonnet, unless I have an open bench spot. It's a different story, but I think Charbonnet is definitely the leading guy that I would look for. Another one here is a little bit farther down the list here, Elijah Mitchell, in case McCaffrey does go down. High-powered offense, always going to score a lot of points. Some of these other names here are just not names that I'm really targeting. Jabril McLaughlin and Roschon Johnson, just guys on other teams that are going to score a lot of fantasy points. Elijah Mitchell and Rico Dowdle, I think, are ones if you really want to stash in case for an injury. I think those are two that you could kind of go for.
I echo a lot of what Nick said. I do like Charbonnet. I think he's clearly the one on the week across every position, I would say. My number two would be Ty Chandler. The last two games since Cam Akers went down, he had 10 and then 15. I know Madison missed some time this week. I assume that he's going to be back next week, but he's dealt with a couple injuries now throughout the season. It's maybe his body holds up, maybe it doesn't, but he also has one of the easier schedules moving forward. That Vikings team has a very, very favorable schedule the rest of the season. So I would still lean on Charbonnet. I think he's the more talented rookie back, more explosive, more fun. He'll probably see a lot more targets and catches. I believe he had 6 targets, 6 catches this week. So definitely lean on him if you're in a fab league. I don't think we've ever used this word on the podcast, fab. But I would probably put the rest of your fab into Charbonnet.
I would as well. Yep. If you've saved your fab, I would kind of go all in unless you lost Mark Andrews, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
So for wide receivers, kind of the same guys that have been floating around waiver wires. The position's so deep that at this point, I don't know who you're picking up to start in your lineup. Maybe you're just kind of playing keep away. But some names that I like: Josh Downs, owned in 47% of leagues; Demario Douglas, owned in 28%, and Noah Brown for the Texans, owned in 44%. I know he didn't play due to the injury, but those are three names that I kind of like at least.
I don't know why everybody's gotten on the hype of Josh Downs. For me, I really have not been able to buy it.
I'm not super high on him as the first name that I listed. But
Sure.
out of those three, I'd personally probably go for Noah Brown, and then Demario Douglas, and then Josh Downs.
I can respect that. I think there's someone down the list that I like a lot more. There's two guys, Jameson Williams. He got a significant bump up in his field time this week in his snap share. So expect the Lions, one of the most high powered offenses in the league, wide receiver two. Like you're not going to be picking up the wide receiver one on any team. You're only looking for twos, and you're going to want the most explosive offenses in the league. So clearly that's Jameson Williams and the Lions on the list.
Before you get to your second player, I just want to point out, and I want your opinion on this as well, although he might be the wide receiver too, where do you see him fitting in this offense? Because I think they are a run-first team. I don't think they want to see Jared Goff throw the ball 30-plus times. So now you're giving priority to both Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And then you have Amon-Ra St. Brown as a top 5-10 wide receiver in this league. And then Sam Laporta as well. So my worry with Williams that he's really the fifth option on this offense. And although I'm okay with picking him up, sure, I'm not sure when I ever trust playing him knowing he's the fifth option on the offense.
I understand that. And my counter to it would be, I don't think that there's a waiver receiver at this point of the year that you would consistently trust. So I would only want to chase whoever had the highest upside. And to me, Jameson Williams is.
You really Noah Brown is the highest upside? I feel like he could be the second or third option on his team.
He'd be a good contender for it. I mean, Collins, Dell, Schultz. I mean, you're talking about another team that has a bunch of.
I think he's above Nico Collins at this point. And I think Schultz is kind of almost like a touchdown or bust. I think Noah Brown might be the second option on that offense. I don't know.
It's possible. It's possible. I think he's worth the ad, but I think it's the same thing. Like you can play him. You're going to get the ups. You're going to get the downs. I do think, Nick, you have a very good point there with Noah Brown. But for me, I do like the idea of the pretty much in his first 16 games, Jameson Williams, first round pick for the Lions, going to come into his own. My number two, I like your Noah Brown take, but I'm going to lean Khalil Shakir. Watching him in the Jets game and watching him cook Sauce Gardner, as sad as it is to say, the only player I think I've seen in Sauce's 2 short year career actually managed to put up a big touchdown on him. It did scare me a little bit, and when I rewatched the route, I watched how well he was able to create space. I think that Bills team with the new offensive coordinator, I think that they're going to be playing angry. I think they're going to be fighting for that playoff spot, and they're going to be putting up points on people. I think this Buffalo team, you're going to see a different team the rest of the season than you saw the first half.
Okay. You think he's above like Gabe Davis on the depth chart at this point?
Not for certain, but I do think you're going to alter the Gabe Davis and Khalil Shakir games a lot more than expected.
Okay. All right. On to tight end. Hands up if you lost Mark Andrews. I'm devastated.
Lose him in, how many leagues you lose him in?
Lost him in 2.
Yep.
One league I am second in points and best record. I think I can end up with a bye, but that sucks. That's a big piece of that team.
Yep.
And other league, I was making a late playoff push and then lost both Joe Burrow and Mark Andrews, and my first round pick was Jamar Chase. So that league's cooked, and that sucks because I was making a late playoff push. I think I'd won like 4 of my last 5 or something. That sucks. So some names that we have here, Isaiah Likely, he's only owned in 2.5% of leagues, but that's going to shoot up. And the thing that sucks is in these leagues that players are losing Andrews in, you probably have a good team, I think, depending on how you drafted. But this league, obviously, that I, that I lost Andrews in, that I'm really, I have a really good team, and I'm not even going to get a shot at Likely. So this is going to suck streaming tight end for the rest of the season. Some other names here. Luke Musgrave's here, but I'm pretty sure he's hurt. I thought I saw earlier that he's hurt.
Got hospitalized earlier today, I believe. He did get released from the hospital. I didn't see the full report, but I did see that something happened that was very serious. I don't know what his status is. I think we'll have to update.
Some other ones, Kate Otten for the Bucks in 23% of leagues, and Nick's guy, Jonnu Smith, 26% of leagues. So Nick shed some light here on maybe some guys that you like. I also see Donald Parham down the list as well. I think Everett may be coming back this week, though. This is going to suck. So for me, personally, it's like Isaiah Likely and then the rest. And you can just kind of stream on a week-to-week basis at this point because there's nobody really going to want to carry just for the sake of it.
Yep, I think you said it perfectly. It's Isaiah Likely than the rest.
All right.
Baltimore, for some perspective on Baltimore and Isaiah Likely, he had an awful game this week. Did not know he was coming in. He's going to be off 10 days of preparation with them having played on Thursday and then going to play Sunday night against the Chargers defense, who are one of the worst in football. That's a very good matchup for him as well. The Ravens offense, Mark Andrews in passing plays is only blocked 5 times in his entire career. So you're really only looking at a tight end who is going to be a pass catcher. Every other tight end that we listed is going to be blocking a lot more. There's a lot more run heavy teams. I know Baltimore's run heavy, but Mark Andrews was the number 1 target. He is easily going to go into that role. It's not clear that he's going to assume the 6 to 10 targets that Andrews was going to get on a daily basis. But if he's 70% of Mark Andrews, that's the top 10 tight end the rest of the way. So I think a lot of people are going to be putting their eggs into this Likely basket. And I think our Andrew owners are going to get screwed over.
Yep. They also really do like, I remember last year, there were rave reports about him as well. All right, moving on. Defenses. So a couple ones here. The Saints are facing the Falcons. Falcons are home. Denver Broncos are facing the Browns. Broncos are home. And the Patriots are facing the Giants. And I think they're coming off a bye.
Yep.
And they're facing the Giants at MetLife. And I feel like Belichick might be coaching for his job. So those are the 3 defenses that I'm kind of looking at least.
I will say I don't think Belichick is coaching for his job. I think that they've already mutually agreed that they're going to part ways at the end of the year and play it out as respect. The New York Giants are a franchise that Bill Belichick does not like. He is coming off a bye. He is prepared for him. He has coached against Brian Daboll plenty of times when he was in Buffalo. He is going to be very well prepared for this game, and there is 0 talent on that Giants team coming off their biggest win of the season against Washington with DeVito at quarterback. I think that the New York Giants are going to get absolutely massacred by the New England Patriots.
Good.
I think that they have to be the number 1 ad for your defense.
All right, we're going to our Week 11 recap, going through each Week 11 game and giving you a fantasy football takeaway from each of them. So, and injury news as well. So, Bengals at Ravens. So let's stick on Mark Andrews for a minute. We've spoken about him a little bit. His injury, I think, was some kind of high ankle sprain, or maybe it was a fibula fracture. They don't actually have it listed here. ESPN does not have any injuries from this game listed, which is ridiculous. I forget the injury. I just know it was an ankle/leg injury. And it seems like he's going to be out for the rest of the fantasy football season, so you could go ahead and drop him. I'd be shocked if he played at any point during the regular season. And it's really sucky. It's sucky for Mark Andrews owners because I think he was the tight end 2 on the year. And I don't think he was too far behind Kelsey either before this week. So that sucks a lot. It does suck for Lamar owners a bit, but I think he'll be okay. Lamar rushes a lot. He spreads the ball around. Likely he's going to fill in the role. So from a fantasy standpoint, the only loser to me is Mark Andrews owners, which is me in 2 of my 5 leagues.
Sure.
That sucks. Any other comments on the Mark Andrews injury?
The only thing I would say is we already talked about Likely. I do think that passing game is going to have to open up a lot more. So I love Odell. I do not want him in any league this year. You could see a lot more opportunities from a veteran like him, who Lamar is starting to establish a rapport with. Zay Flowers early on in the year when Andrews was dinged up in week 1 and missing some time. You saw Lamar go to Zay Flowers very early and often. You're going to see that more often. And Rashad Bateman's probably going to get a lot more time on the field. I think his snap share went up significantly after the injury. So keep your eye out on those Ravens receivers. I know that backfield and those receivers are like, whose week is it going to be? And it's kind of awful for your fantasy team, but keep your eye out. A week from now, maybe Rashad Bateman emerges a lot more than Isaiah Likely, and they change the offensive scheme. So just keep your eyes out.
And for the Bengals side of things, Joe Burrow's out for the season. He had something wrong with his wrist. I forget the actual injury. I saw it was a wrist injury, and he's out for the season. And that sucks because this looked to be a pretty promising, good Thursday night game. I think it was like 14-14 at the time. Andrews is out at this point, but it did look to be like it was going to be a good game, and it could have been real battle for the division. So this sucks for him. It sucks for fantasy football because Burrow was, when Burrow was healthy, I don't know the numbers really. I mean, I'll look at the numbers. I actually do have the numbers in front of me. So when Burrow was healthy, Burrow put up,
he was playing well.
24, 14, 27, 22, and 21. Those are top 10 quarterback numbers. Maybe even, I think those are top 5 quarterback numbers when he was healthy. You're talking about his low of 14 and a high of 27. Those are top 5 quarterback numbers. So I know me and Nick have our fun Joe Burrow and Herbert arguments on the show, and we still will, but I think Nick will kind of agree with me here that the injury at the beginning of the season definitely affected him and the Bengals as a team. And once he got healthy, I think both him and the team, for the most part, looked better. So that does suck for Joe Burrow owners. It also sucks for Jamar Chase owners, T. Higgins owners. I think T. Higgins is probably the biggest loser out of this, I think. I think they'll run a lot of Joe Mixon. I think Chase is still an alpha. So Chase takes a big hit. But I think the fact that, T. Higgins owners haven't gotten a ton out of him this season, and he might be he's up there for the biggest bust, like him, Tony Pollard, and a couple others. But I think T. Higgins might be the biggest loser of this.
I totally agree with you. I think Jamar Chase, listen, he's not going to pan out to be the wide receiver 2 that he was drafted to be on the season. It's not going to happen. It sucks. Can he be a top 12 receiver the rest of the way? Maybe. He will definitely be a top 20 receiver the rest of the way. And it hurts your team, but it's the frustrating point. It's like having Najee Harris, where it's like, God damn it, I took this guy way too early on, but he's still putting up 10 points in a game, and I got to play him. There's no explosiveness. Like, he's going to be consistent, and he's going to have that big play upside. And the Bengals are going to be down in a lot more games. They're going to be playing from behind. That should favor Jamar Chase being effective, but it's not Joe Burrow, period. You don't need to sugarcoat it. T. Higgins, I'm benching him in leagues right now. I own him in one league. It's a 1 flex, so it's not like I have to. If it's a 2 flex, maybe he's more likely you put him in there.
If you owned him in our league, you'd have to play him, I think.
Yeah, if you have 2 receiver, 2 flex. Yep, totally agree. And it's 12.
And ours is a 12-team league, as well.
Yeah. So if you have one of those types of leagues, like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to play him for the talent, but he has underperformed this year entirely. And now the quarterback downgrade is going to hurt him.
Yep.
Joe Mixon, the rest of the way, looked very good. Last year, he was pacing 80 receptions on the year, which is like prime Saquon Barkley numbers. So I do think Joe Mixon is good. I don't think he's going to get a bump up. But as of right now, I'm not worried for Joe Mixon as much as I would be for T. Higgins.
Okay. I don't have any other fantasy takeaway from this game. The game was the game. Burrow went out. I think the injuries are the big takeaway, and there's really nothing else to be said.
Correct.
All right, we got some questions in the chat. Let's answer them from Joe. Can I confidently start Garrett Wilson with Tim Boyle at quarterback? You can confidently start him. You will start him, but confidently, no.
I agree with you. He's been very good this year, considering his situation. It was the same exact thing last year, which is why he won Offensive Rookie of the Year. You have seen a massive step up from him on the field in his play. His production, because of the quarterback play, has not taken as big of a step up, but he's still going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. He is still going to be worth starting. It's just he goes from a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2, down to a flex play most weeks. So if there are weeks you want to bench him, like they're playing Miami this week, he's probably going to get shadowed by Ramsey. Do you want Tim Boyle throwing to Garrett Wilson and Jalen Ramsey? I know he did not look great at the end of his Rams career, but he has looked phenomenal so far with the Dolphins.
He had a good last game. He had a good game Sunday. And here's the thing. I hate to call Garrett Wilson a bust because I don't think he's the problem, but yeah, he's a bust. You drafted him in your first 15, 20 picks thinking that Rodgers is going to be his quarterback. And I can't call like the player himself a bust. It's not really his fault. Offensive line's decimated. Quarterback was Zach Wilson, but he's the wide receiver 27 right now, and you probably drafted him as the wide receiver like 5 or 7. So that's just kind of where we're sitting at right now. And the quarterback situation is not going to get better.
Nick, I do hate to tell you this. I'm also looking at standard scoring. If you're in a standard scoring league, he's currently averaging 7 points per game.
Yeesh.
He is currently all the way down to the wide receiver 36 in standard.
And again, I don't want to knock every Jet because I don't think he's the problem. But the Jets should have signed Carson Wentz. Should have done it. I said it. Nobody wanted to listen to me.
Even after we didn't sign Wentz, it made too much. Seeing that Joshua Dobbs is available for 6-7.
There'd be somebody. There'd be somebody to go out and get. And now you're stuck with Tim Boyle. I hate to because Nick is a good friend of mine. And listen, I think you Jets fans did kind of get a little, not you, but I think a lot of you Jets fans may have gotten a little reality check after the hype of the offseason. Just saying it.
I wouldn't say that.
Listen, I heard a lot of ridiculous takes during the offseason. I understand you all were excited. I heard a lot of takes. I think it's now a come down to earth moment. And also, I heard a lot of ridiculous takes week 1. Oh, Zach is this, Zach is that. Listen. Kind of Saleh and that front office are getting what they deserve at this point for not going out. Yes. No. Week 1, 2, and 3, you go out and sign a backup. They were scared to. I don't know why. They were scared to go get another quarterback in that room. Because hypothetically, what if Zach gets hurt week 2? Well, you didn't go out and get somebody. So now Tim Boyle's your starter. Now you're forced to get somebody. So why did you not go do it as a precautionary reason when you have all this talent on the team? I don't get it. I'll never get it. I feel like they punted the season from week 1. I don't know why.
I won't get into a full Jets discussion because I trust me, I have plenty of.
Yeah, but you're telling me they should not have made a call or maybe.
No, listen,
you're telling me they shouldn't have brought in somebody.
Again, I totally agree with you.
If Wentz sucks, Wentz sucks.
Was their slip up of this. That you could argue was their slip up of the season, but. At a point in the year with Zach Wilson, they were 5-3. At one point in Zach Wilson's career, with Robert Saleh as coach, he was 9-7. That's his career with Robert Saleh up until the last 2 weeks. I get it. The team is not good. It's Garrett Wilson. It's Breece Hall. It's a loaded defense. PFF put out their all-pro rankings this year based off their PFF score or whatever. They have 5 defensive players that would have made the all-pro team for defense. That's how phenomenal.
They're awesome. Their defense is awesome, but their defense can only do so much. The defense, as awesome as the defense is not the Legion of Boom, and is not the Broncos defense in 2015. It's not a knock on the Jets, but it's a reality check. They're not an all-time great defense. They're a good defense, and they can only carry so much. A good defense can only carry so much.
I would say you would think that they were one of those defenses if you had complementary football, and they are not set up for that without Aaron.
That Broncos team was hard. There was not complementary football on that Broncos team. They were bad. They were bad. I would have to watch some of those games.
You had Peyton Manning. You had,
but they didn't have Peyton Manning. He didn't start a good chunk of those games. I think Trevor Siemian started a good chunk of those games.
Yeah, you're right.
Or was it the Rocket Ship? It might have been the Rocket Ship.
It was a mix of Osweiler.
Yeah, Peyton ended the year, but yeah, that was not a complimentary football team. That defense was excellent, and so was the Legion of Boom. But the Seahawks had a better offense for sure. Yeah. Again, not a knock on the Jets defense. They're a good defense, but they're not an all-time great defense. That's not a knock because there's only so many all-time great defenses. And they do need, again, if they had Carson Wentz or 50-year-old Matt Ryan, or if they tried to pay Andrew Luck, I know I'm just throwing stupid names out there at this point, but maybe Blake Bortles is hanging around. There had to be somebody out there that was better than Tim Doyle.
I really tried to end the Jets conversation to not talk real football, but you keep going on it. You keep pounding.
I know, because I feel bad for Garrett Wilson because he's getting screwed. Sorry, Joe. There's your answer. You can't confidently start him, but you probably still have to start him depending on your league. I think that's my short answer.
Correct.
All right. From Dylan Fink. I'll read your question, but I'll just be honest. These are very tough questions for us to answer. So when you say Last call for playoffs, trades drops. Lost Anthony Richardson and Mark Andrews. Got McBride trying for likely 12-team PPR and listed out your roster. I mean, I wouldn't really drop anybody. Like we told you, the guys that you could try to pick up in terms of trades. I can't just give you a blanket statement. I mean, maybe see if you could get like a receiver. If anybody's biting on a running back, but I mean, Stroud's going to be good. Diggs, Ayuk, Marquise Brown, you're solid. These types of questions are really hard to ask when you're not giving us like a baseline to go off of.
For sure. I mean, looking at it, assuming that it's 2 receiver, 2 running back, 1 flex, your starting lineup's kind of set. It's going to be Stroud, Pollard, mix in then Diggs, Ayuk, and James Cook will be your flex more weeks than not.
He's also asking who he should drop for likely. I would say if that's Jalen Reed, I have no interest in Jalen Reed going forward.
Yeah, totally agree.
All right, moving on. Next game, Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. No new injury news in this one. I don't know. This game was low scoring. It's what I expected.
I told you before the game, and this is why I love over-unders. This was the second lowest over-under in the last decade of football. It was a really low expected game. You got exactly what you expected. I do not pay much attention to Steelers football outside of our fantasy team, outside of our fantasy podcasts and leagues. And I have seen people like practically throwing like, I don't know what the opposite of a protest is, like I guess a celebration for Matt Canada being fired. So
celebration, yep.
We will absolutely keep an eye out on that Steelers team. We know they're loaded at receiver between Allen Robinson, their leading target guy after week 1. Pat Freiermuth coming back. You got the dual-headed running backs and Deontay.
And Jaylen Warren looked good. He had a 74-yard run. I mean, he looked good.
Yep. The week after I traded him.
Yep. I mean, you would have beaten me by more points. It wouldn't have hurt you.
Points matter in our league. Points matter.
You're right. They actually do. So, I'm not taking much like away from this game. Like AFC North battle, it's like a Big Ten matchup. Both really good defenses. The Browns defense, not to slight your Jets, Nick. The Browns defense, I don't know. I think the Browns.
I think the Jets have the 4th best defense in the league right now.
San Francisco was awesome as well.
San Fran, I have 1, Cleveland 2, and I would probably put KC right above them.
Kansas City has an awesome defense.
Yeah,
Patty Mahomes is going to get carried to another.
I would have said the Jets were better up until yesterday, but they absolutely bullied the offensive and defensive line of the Eagles, which you have not seen in 2 years. So even though they lost the game.
All right. Next game, the Bears at the Lions. This was a fun game. This is a really fantasy-friendly game, too. For injuries, Dante Foreman suffered a right ankle injury during Sunday's game. Was questionable to return. I don't think he returned. No other injury news, which is good. I'll let you go first. I mean, there's kind of a lot. I mean, I don't know if there's a lot to break down, but like everybody was pretty good, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, listen, I mean, you kind of got exactly what you knew you were going to get. Your Lions showed out. Justin Fields has had, I believe, his 3rd good game in a row as a quarterback. The 2 before the injury, and then this one. So
I looked that up while you're talking.
Yeah, it was his fantasy games were 29-33, got hurt 5.9, and then
so we're not counting that. Yep. So and then 21. So and Fields had an awesome game. He only had 1 passing touchdown, but didn't throw a pick. His passer rating was 105, which I know is not a fantasy stat. Still throwing it out there. He had 104 rushing yards, so that's exactly why you drafted him. And he had an awesome fantasy game. It was better for DJ Moore. Even if we're not DJ Moore guys, he had 7 receptions for 96 yards and a touchdown. It's a 25-point game. Some other little notes. Jared Goff threw 3 picks. That sucks, but he's still been a viable option. Both of the running backs looked decent. David Montgomery got his revenge touchdown. Amon-Ra had a great game. Jahmyr Gibbs got a couple receptions. The real duddy was Sam Laporta, but I'm not worried about that because, again, as I said about Jameson Williams before, there's so many mouths to feed on this very talented offense. You're only going to get so much. So I'm not super worried about Laporta.
I agree.
All right. Next game, the Los Angeles Chargers at the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. No, I don't want to talk about this one.
Oh, we were talking about it. Aaron Jones.
We had to do a fight last night about this game.
Oh, yeah. Aaron Jones has an MCL sprain, I think. This is ACL, but I thought it was an MCL. Nick, you know your ligaments. I think it was MCL.
I know my ankle. I know my left ankle.
Nick does know his ankle. I'm pretty sure it's an MCL sprain, and I think he's not playing Thursday and might miss a little bit more time as well.
I would not play Aaron Jones the rest of the season.
I'm not sure I would. Can I say something? I wouldn't play a Packer the rest of the season.
I agree. I watched Christian Watson get dropped in a lot of leagues today. And
Yeah,
it took 5 weeks too long.
Yeah, I'm not right on everything, but I was a very, very anti-Christian Watson. Very anti-Christian. So, Nick, what's your biggest fantasy takeaway?
I mean, you talked about the Packers side of the ball. I mean, I guess we could talk about the slippery hand Chargers, who had 5 drops this game. Nick wants to tell me Keenan Allen played well. As I watched the ball hit him square.
I'm looking at 10 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown. I think that's
Did you watch the video I sent you? Did you watch the video I sent you?
I will reiterate what I told you yesterday. It was a long TikTok video, and it
was 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And all you saw in the video was the first 60 seconds of the Chargers playing well. And then you watch Keenan Allen drop, Parham drop, Keenan Allen drop, and whatever the rookie receiver's name is.
Quentin Johnson's was really bad. That drop was really bad.
All 4 of those were on separate touchdown drives, all 4 of which would have ended in a touchdown. The Parham one probably would have ended in a field goal or a first down that would have attempted a touchdown. But Justin Herbert literally had the opportunity for the Chargers to score 28 additional points in this game. They literally, if they played just as well as they did and just executed in those touchdown moments and those players caught those balls, literally would have dropped 50 points on the Packers. But the storyline is that they lost because of this. And my brother pissed me off yesterday because he had the audacity to say Herbert needs to throw better balls. And I was literally like, well, if the Chargers didn't drop 5 balls, he would have had like an 80% completion percentage on the game. But that's besides the point.
Hey,
really
you're right. Now, let me just read off some stats for you. I just want to read them off. So do you think these are good stats? 5,000 passing yards, 41 tutties to 16 interceptions.
Let's just like Matt Ryan or Phillip Rivers.
No. I read off a couple years. I want you to say good or not good. 4,900 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 17 interceptions.
That's not a great touchdown interception ratio. No.
4,600 yards, 29 touchdowns, 19 interceptions.
Okay.
4,200 yards, 22 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Do you think that this player had a good start to his career?
Did I predict?
We're playing yes or no. Do you think this player had a good start to his career?
I fine. Yeah, sure.
How many playoff wins do you think this player has in his career?
Not enough.
I think he has like 4. This is Matthew Stafford, and I'm gonna wipe. I'm playing history, Revolution's history. I'm wiping away the Rams because he got carried. Now let's go Justin Herbert, and Herbert's stats are better, I will say. 40. Well, his touchdown to interception ratio is 4,300 yards, 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Great.
Rookie year.
5,000 yards, 38 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. Great.
That statistical season you just read off for Justin Herbert.
It's awesome.
Would have won him an MVP if the Chargers could win 12 games because they're
probably 4,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Still pretty good. That was last year. And I just want to reiterate that Herbert was my fantasy quarterback rookie year with Russell Wilson. If I had played Justin Herbert, I win the fantasy championship that year in our league. And here's the thing. I did like Justin Herbert, and I don't dislike him as a person, but I think he's overrated, and I don't think he's an elite quarterback. And we're going to debate this every week, but this is my week to shine because you lost to the Packers, and they're terrible. I'm going to slam my desk about the Packers and how bad they are.
Watch the video.
I will watch it. You know what? I watch your video.
No. I'm not going to listen to this. I'm going to interrupt you, and I don't interrupt you often, but I'm going to interrupt you now. If you watch the video, you will literally watch 4 different plays on 4 separate drives that cost the Chargers touchdowns, and they were all on phenomenally accurate throws by Justin Herbert. Again, we are not having this conversation. We are not having this conversation if any one of those 4 balls are caught. We are not questioning Justin Herbert. The only question that there should be is Brandon Staley. And Brandon Staley is going to get fired because he's defensive coach with the highest paid defense. And over the last 3 years as a head coach, they have ranked consistently 30th, 31st, and 31st in defense. Like, they're the worst defense in the league with the highest
payroll. Sounds like Matthew Stafford to me.
Why does it
Stafford
sound like
always had a
Matthew
bad.
Stafford?
He always had a bad defense. He never won in the playoffs, and he put up a lot of yards.
But
He was a stat sheet
even
stuffer.
Justin Herbert, his offense, he's played 12 total games with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen both on the field. Like,
Yes, that's not his fault. You're right. That is not his fault.
Austin Eckler, he's been great the last 2 years at punching the ball into the end zone, but he's not a good running back. He's literally not a good runner. He's not a good runner.
He's a Swiss Army knife.
No, he's not. He's not a Swiss Army knife. He is good at punching the ball into the end zone and catching short passes. He is literally averaging like 3.5 yards per carry on his career. He is getting like a 45% snap share in his career. He is literally like such a bad runner as a running back. They can't figure out that position either. Then this year, when Mike Williams goes down for the year, you think you get Josh Palmer and he goes onto the IR 2 weeks later.
That was bad luck. That was very bad luck.
And then you draft a receiver in the first round who dropped another game-winning pass from Justin Herbert.
Very bad. That was very bad. That was very bad.
And listen, I am not the person that's going to make excuses for players, but there's more than enough evidence and there's more than enough reasons to say this is why Justin Herbert is not succeeding. Period. End of story.
Yeah, but I think there's also evidence to combat that and say, well, maybe he's just not an elite quarterback. He's a very good quarterback.
I totally disagree because if I took Justin, and it's the debate that we'll always have, switch Justin Herbert with other quarterbacks in the league. I think Jacksonville is 100% better with Justin Herbert, and those are the two that I've
probably. But why does Herbert lose that game?
Why does Herbert lose this game?
No. The Jacksonville game. I probably don't have this take if he wins that Jacksonville game.
It's because
it's not all on coaching. Because you had an entire half to score one touchdown.
Austin Eckler could not get over 3 yards, and the defense allowed 30 points in the second half. Like, I don't know.
Why did Herbert not score enough points in the second half?
I don't know. Listen, if you want to fault
if this was Russell Wilson, I say the same thing.
I get it. If you want to fault him for 2 quarters of football, fine. Like, if that's the argument, he had 2 bad quarters of football.
My other fault is I don't think he has a signature performance. Anyway.
That I can respect, except for the fact that he has beaten Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead. He's the only quarterback in his division to have done that.
Which year was that?
I think Russell Wilson might have done that this year.
Which year was that? I'm just curious. What year
I think it was his second year in the league.
Second year, okay.
Yes. So
so maybe he does have a signature win then. Okay, that's his one signature.
The whole point is like I don't even want. I'm so done talking about this. I can't wait for Bill Belichick to coach him next year.
I can't wait for Sunday night because that is a big stage for Justin Herbert. And if they lose that game, but it's competitive, I will retract some Herbert statements. But it cannot be a blowout by Baltimore.
You're not going to say that. You want to know what's going to happen? They're going to be up by 3 points. They're going to be up by 3 points in the fourth quarter. The Ravens are going to score a touchdown. The Chargers are going to have the ball, and for some reason, they're not going to be able to.
But he should score. Listen, I love Russell Wilson. I love Russell with the death, but you know what? I don't know how elite he was. I'm just going to say, on the Seahawks, I don't know how elite he was. He never got signature wins. I guess stats were pretty good, but how many signature wins does Russell Wilson have? Like, again, you're speaking, that's my guy. How many signature wins does Russell Wilson have? Listen.
He's probably got a bunch. I'm sure you could go back and say, oh, wow. I mean, listen, I'm not going to say the Super Bowl run was him. It's obviously a very low.
He always got spanked in Lambeau. He always got embarrassed in the playoffs. He got embarrassed by the Falcons, embarrassed by the Panthers. Like, he got whipped
until this year. But up until this year, Russell Wilson was pacing to be, or last year, Russell Wilson was pacing to be the winningest quarterback ever. Like, for as young as he was hitting so many win benchmarks in his career.
Correct.
And you got to give a lot of credit to Seattle and Pete Carroll for that. I know Nick and I have debated Pete Carroll 3 years ago with Russell Wilson, and Nick hated Pete Carroll. I'm sure he switched his take and then switched it back after this loss last past week. But
a bit. We're on the fence.
We're on the fence.
I'll always appreciate him. I'll say that. I will always appreciate him and know that he is better than a lot of other coaches in the league, even if I don't agree with everything that's done, and that's okay.
All right, it's time to move on.
Let's move on. We got a question here from Mark Falkman. Zach Charbonnet startable over Josh Jacobs this week? Absolutely effing not. The 49ers might drop 50 on that defense. It's going to be miserable for my Thanksgiving. But the Seahawks are wearing their green jerseys, so I get to be kind of happy for like the first drive or two.
You're gonna get your Thanksgiving ruined. I forgot that this game was a Thanksgiving game.
Oh yeah.
I would say no, you cannot. But I think it's more. Nick shot it down very quickly. I do not like the Chris Jones matchup this year for anyone because that team that, like I said earlier,
I
they are
don't either.
probably
You're
the third
right.
best defense in the league. So it's
They're very
definitely a toss up, but I would definitely lean on the side of do not play the rookie against San Francisco.
And Jacobs is the better running back, as far as I can tell, at least for now. Speaking of the Raiders, that's our next game. The Raiders at the Dolphins. Devon Achane went out with a minor injury, and I believe a knee injury, and Mike McDaniel held him out for precautionary reasons. Listen, I know neither one of us could predict an injury, but this is also partly why I was worried about him on Sunday morning, and why I was telling people let's not play Devon Achane if you have better, other viable options. Now, I don't think Brian Robinson had a good game, so I can't really back it up with my
Brian Robinson played very well. Brian
Oh,
Robinson played very well. He had 20 points.
Okay, so then I stand by that take, and I pat myself on the back. Achane's going to be fine. I just think you have to be cautious until he's healthy. And I will say the same thing for this week. I'm not going to tell you to bench him, but if you have another option, I'm going to play the other option because Miami still likes Mostert. And it's also a bad match against your Jets. That's my Devon.
The Jets are actually one of the worst teams against the run.
Okay, it's a good matchup then. There you go.
I do think Miami's going to catch a very early lead. Unless if Tua turns the ball over, and he's not a very turnover-worthy quarterback against the Jets. I think the Jets play the Dolphins always tight. And
primetime game for Tua, though. The big spot.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a good spot. I think that this is going to be a much better game than people anticipate. At least one side of the ball will be more of a fun matchup. I do not look forward to seeing Tim Boyle on my team. But
oh my God, Cheetah's stat line is disgusting. 10, 146, and 1. He may go for 2,000 yards. He's on pace for it.
And don't forget, he also got hurt and missed a portion of the game.
He did a little bit of it, right? He came back.
He missed, I want to say 8 minutes or 9 minutes in the second quarter.
Damn.
But
all right.
He already. I'm pretty sure his stat line was 6 for 80 and a touchdown at that point. So
Christ.
Whatever.
All right. Giants at the Commanders. I don't know how the Giants won by this many points. It was closer the last time I remember it. But my big takeaway, I'll just jump the gun here on Brian Robinson. I've been kind of on his train for a couple of weeks now. 7 receptions for 58 yards is great. 73 yards on the ground is great. I think he's a guy you kind of just play every week at this point. He's been great. Sam Howell was garbage, and he hasn't had many garbage games, but he was garbage, and this is an outlier divisional matchup.
Sam Howell actually had a very good fantasy day. He finished with a little over 20. He's still the QB.
Oh, wow. I guess the picks didn't affect him too much.
Yeah.
Oh, the rushing touchdown. That's why.
Yes,
the rushing touchdown saved him. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he's either number 1 or number 2 in total passing yards on the season. Again, I echoed this on the live show. I want to keep repeating this. Eric Bieniemy deserves a head coaching job somewhere next year. I think
the Commanders.
He's going to get it. I'm sorry?
For the Commanders.
Well, there's a rumor that they want to bring Belichick in, the Commanders, because there's a relationship there between Bezos and Belichick's family.
Interesting.
Which I have no problem with him going out to the NFC. Although I do want to see him on the Chargers, or I think
the Bills would be a lot of fun.
Again, it's my hot take.
You know what he should do? He should be the Jets head coach next year with Rodgers.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
My hot take for next year is that I think what's his face, the head coach of the Bills, his name is escaping me,
Sean McDermott.
I think he's going to get fired if they do not make it to the AFC Championship game again. And even if they lose there, I wouldn't be surprised if he got fired anyways. And they have an opening at head coach and offensive coordinator, and there's 2 guys on the market, Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels. And I would not be shocked at all. It's my hot take of the year. I think the 2 of them, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think there's a very realistic shot that they reunite. And the one thing I will say, as much as I do not like either of them, as being a Jets fan that has seen them way too often, I do think the one thing that they will be able to do together is limit the number of turnovers Josh Allen has. And if they can do that, Buffalo is a 13-14 win team. Period.
Sure. Okay. Cowboys at the Panthers. I don't have much to say. Like, I expect this game to go this way, but Tony Pollard got into the end zone.
Yeah.
Yay.
Crazy.
That's all I got. He had 4 catches too, which is great. So good job, Tony Pollard. Let's keep it up.
Bad radio. How did Adam Thielen play this week?
He had like 15 points.
So,
15
okay,
points. Not bad. Adam
bouncing
Thielens' issue is the Panthers are just terrible.
No, for sure. And I think that they very much realize, I think they realized 3 weeks in that they fucked up on the quarterback that they took, knowing Stroud and Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson was a phenomenal leader. He's been getting raving reviews out of the Colts camp and looked very good the first few weeks of the season. There is definitely the Cam Newton concern, and maybe they said, we don't want the next Cam Newton in Carolina, but I do think that they are going to regret that decision and that trade.
We're talking football, and I want your objective opinion. Do you think Stroud is that much better for the Panthers? Because maybe I'm just being too kind to Bryce Young. I don't think he's the problem. The running game stinks. The line is terrible. The defense is terrible. Like, the Texans' defense is making plays against good teams. I don't know. Like, Stroud looks great. I'm not taking anything away from him, and I guess if the situations are flipped, I think he'd still be okay, but I don't know, man. I don't know how much better he'd make that Panthers team. I think they're just a horrendous football team.
I understand the take. I don't hate it, but I would say that the two teams are very comparable on the offensive side of the ball going into the year, at least. You're looking at Robert Woods, Noah Brown, veteran receiver, Adam Thielen, better than the two of them. You're looking at rookie receiver Tank Dell, Jonathan Mingo. You're looking at lackluster running back room for the two of them, lackluster offensive lines. The Panthers have actually drafted more successful offensive linemen the last few years than the Texans have. So I don't know. I think they're two comparable teams, and I agree that we've seen the better coaching on the Texans side, but they also have a defensive head coach. Like, you have an offensive head coach in Carolina. So hard to disagree with, but I do think that Stroud doing it with this roster in the AFC is a lot more impressive.
Oh, I agree. I 100% agree.
In that division, there is no reason that Love, I get it, he's a rookie, it's a rough roster, should not be competing in games, and they're getting flat out demolished, it feels like, in every single week.
I agree.
So, all
right. Titans at the Jaguars. This was a beatdown, and I'm glad it was, because I don't like the Titans. Like, I'm done with the Titans.
I am pissed at Trevor Lawrence. I dislike him very much.
I kind of said on the Sunday morning show, hey, let's play Calvin Ridley everywhere, because why not? And he had a great game, 7 receptions, 103 yards, 2 tutties. ETN was not as good as he has been. Trevor was great, 262, 2 tutties, and the Titans stink everywhere. Derrick Henry stinks. Hopkins actually had a touchdown, so maybe he doesn't stink.
It was like a
garbage time
standoff, flea flicker, fun.
Well, points are points. I have nothing on this game. I know who these teams are. I know who I'm playing, and I don't want any part of the Titans. I've been saying it for weeks.
Yeah, I'm just really pissed at Trevor Lawrence, because he's been so fucking abysmal this year, and I played him in a league, and I benched him in a league for Kyler Murray. I said it on the live, and that was the difference in me winning or losing. I will say, for fantasy,
what was the point difference? I'm just curious, because Kyler had a passing touchdown, rushing touchdown. What was the point difference?
So in this league, I lost by 3 points. So it was a close game. In this league, it is 0.05 yards per pass attempt for yard. So Kyler put up 23.8. Trevor Lawrence put up 34.8. So
wow.
About a 10-point gap between the two of them.
Gotcha.
In a normal league, I'm sure it's probably closer to like 7 or 8. But that's enough for me to win. Yep. This is my 14-person league where I have to show my girlfriend's family who is boss. But I will say, we want to focus on the games, but I'm having a very successful fantasy season. I have 4 leagues. 3 of them I'm 7-4 in. I'm top 4 in points in pretty much all of my leagues.
Yep.
And my league where I have the worst record of all my leagues, I have Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, and Mike Evans as my receivers, with Derrick Henry and Kyron. So.
Yep, there you go.
And lost Mark Andrews.
All right. Here we go. Cardinals at the Texans. So injuries for this one. Noah Brown was out with doesn't even say. He has an injury. Should be out in a week or two. Damian Pierce is also out. CJ Stroud had like 250 passing yards, like 2 touchdowns in the first half, and then he didn't do much in the second half. That's okay. Great game for Devin Singletary, 100 yards and a tutty. I think maybe he's the starter over there now. Tank Dell, another awesome game. 149-1. He's your sleeper of the year. Just crown him already. On the Cardinals side of things, Kyler had a decent game. James Conner had 62 yards, which just isn't cutting it without a touchdown. Marquise Brown still hasn't had his game, and I am benching him going forward until I see something that tells me otherwise. And I know I kind of rattle off everything, but if you have any other takes, you could throw them in there.
If your trade deadline is not passed, I would trade for Damian Pierce.
Even with Singletary looking like decent?
Yes, because I think the team has figured out this offense and CJ Stroud, and this team has become a lot more explosive. And I do not believe it's because Damian Pierce is a worse running back than Devin Singletary. And Damian Pierce right now sitting at the RB49, missing 3 weeks. The 3 games before that, 9, 3, and 4. There should be no problem getting him for a Romeo Dobbs equivalent wide receiver at this point. So I think it's worth taking a risk on. I don't think it's much risk. I wouldn't be surprised if he hit a lot of waivers. After this week.
Bucks at 49ers. I don't really have a take on this, Nick. I mean, we know who the 49ers are. 2 or 3 will have really good games. This week it was McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk went nuclear. Kittle had an awesome stat line, 889-1. And the Bucks players did not play well. And I had said from the jump, like, I'm worried about all your Bucks. Like, Mike Evans had a solid game. He's Mike Evans. Rashad White scored. But from the jump, I kind of said, like, this is not a good matchup for the Bucks. So there's no fantasy takeaway from me for this one.
My only fantasy takeaway would be that I think Brock Purdy is still getting overlooked. We all know how phenomenal he was last
Purdy's
year.
the quarterback they've been waiting for, and it sucks for me to have to say that. It sucks.
He is the QB 10 on the year right now. Over the entire course of the season, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games over 20 points. One of the games he was injured in. 2 of the games he was injured in, he got the concussion, which led to 2 late interceptions. They would only have 2 losses if Jake Moody didn't miss a field goal at one point this year, and then they lost to the Bengals fair and square. So, listen, man, Brock Purdy's the real deal. Brock Purdy's still on a lot of waiver wires, and he's the QB 10 on the year right now. There is no reason he should be sitting on the waiver wire with how loaded the team is.
All right, Jets at the Bills. My only takeaway is that Josh Allen finally had a good game against the Jets, and it feels like it hasn't happened in years. 275, 3 touchdowns. He was great, and he was great. That's my fantasy takeaway. He's great.
Yeah,
we already talked about Garrett Wilson. I mean, you talked about Shakir. We kind of already covered this game.
Yeah, Allen's the QB1. I don't think that's going to drop. The one concern I have as an owner is he does go on bye in 2 weeks, which is very late. But then he will.
I didn't know that. That's really big for you. I didn't know that.
Yes, so that I get to play against someone in our league that I'm not going to say publicly, but that I will just say I'm very grateful that my matchup landed that week with Josh Allen on bye. So. Listen,
that's week 14,
13 or 14. I forget, but I know I'm playing Russell Wilson that week against the Texans. Okay. Which sucks. It sucks to have to buy that late, but he is going to be well rested going into your fantasy playoffs, and he's still averaging the most points per game at the quarterback position. Jalen Hurts is pretty much one bye game behind him. But Allen's been the QB1 since I want to say week 3 or week 4 of the season. So. Definitely paying off on the ADP.
Yep. All right. My Seahawks at the Rams. Just misery. I hate the Rams. Geno looked really good, and then he got hurt. He had a bruised elbow that he sustained right before the fourth quarter, and he didn't play the fourth quarter until the last drive, and he almost mounted a pretty cool comeback. Don't know why they threw Drew Lock into the fire if he could have played, but whatever. Kenneth Walker was forced out with this oblique injury. And Cooper Kupp had an ankle injury, did not return. I think he'll be fine for next week, but watch that one. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, this game kind of was how I expected. It was a low scoring, NFC West matchup. DK Metcalf had one of his few good games of the season. He's wide receiver 26. Is that standard? Probably worse in PPR. DK Metcalf in PPR. I'm sorry. Let me scroll down here. Is wide receiver 29. He had 20 fantasy points. So he had a good game. He definitely has not lived up to his standards, at least. I think he's being drafted at the wide receiver, maybe 20 or so.
I think a little higher than 20. But again, I was talking about this last week. The discrepancy between, let's go through it real quick. Tyreek Hill is the wide receiver 1 on the season. He has 254 points in total. If I go all the way down to the wide receiver 6, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek Hill has scored nearly 60 more points than a little more than 60 points more than Amon-Ra.
Yep.
Amon-Ra is at 192 and is the wide receiver 6. 60 total points below him would be Amari Cooper, who's the wide receiver 24. So the gap is not as significant from 1 to 5, or is much bigger from 1 to 5 than 5 to whatever number you really want to throw out there. DK Metcalf is he missed a game with injury. He's had his bye already. Some other players have not. He's still averaging 13.5 points. If he plays that one more game, scores 14 points, he's at 134, and you said wide receiver 20 on the year. That's exactly where he would be right now. So it's very hard for the mid-round receivers for the rankings, but they're all going to be close no matter what. It's a touchdown away from 2 ranking spots.
Sunday night football. Vikings at the Denver Broncos. No injury activity for this one. Justin Jefferson did not play. Alexander Madison did play. Nick, your biggest fantasy takeaway for this one? It's going to be Sutton.
Oh, no, I'll leave you for Sutton because I've already shouted his praises to the heavens. Listen, the Denver Broncos, Sean Payton turned this team around after, misery a year ago, miseries for the first 7 games of the year, and now 3 massive wins coming against Kansas City, Buffalo, and the red-hot Minnesota Vikings. I will say they did escape with a win against Buffalo. But listen, it happens to everybody. The Jets escaped with a win against the Giants, right? They were down 10-3 the entire game. Zach Wilson got a pass interference that led him to a field goal to send it to overtime for another field goal, right? Flukes happen for every team, every year, whatever. It's going to happen either way. Broncos fully have recovered. Jerry Jeudy is still not the wide receiver 1 over there. Nick, you want to talk about Sutton? Maybe. So I'll leave it for you, but
I don't know who the wide receiver 1 is. So Jeudy was 558 on 7 targets. Cortland Sutton 4 receptions, 66 on 5 targets. Sutton's kind of the wide receiver 1, but you know what? The Broncos are an annoying fantasy team because they spread the ball around. And the glaring thing to me is your Javonte Williams, 11 carries compared to Samaje Perine's 1. But then you have Samaje Perine, 7 receptions for 60 yards. He had 13 fantasy points. So my big takeaway is that the Broncos just kind of spread the ball around, and it's hard to. I know you are, have a soft spot for Cortland Sutton, and maybe he's earned a flex spot in your lineup. But I just think it's really hard to trust the Bronco in your lineup that's not Russell Wilson right now because they do spread the ball around a lot.
I would argue and say Sutton is in PPR. He's wide receiver 18. He has had 1 game under 10.9 fantasy points all year. He has had no games over 20 fantasy points all year. So he is Mr. Consistency 10 to 15 every single week. And unfortunately, that's not what you want for your lineup. You want a guy that's going to go get you 25 or 30. But listen, if you have a super stacked roster and you have Cortland Sutton, that's the guy you want in your flex to go get you your guaranteed 10 points.
All right. Monday Night Football, the Chiefs and the Eagles. Man, you want to talk about receivers losing a guy a game? Yeesh. And A.J. Brown had a really bad game, one of his very, very few bad games. I don't necessarily have a fantasy takeaway from this one. I mean, Pacheco was Pacheco. Travis Kelce kind of got locked up. I guess maybe that's my fantasy takeaway. He'll shake it off next week probably. And Devontae Smith went 6 for 99 and no tutties, but still he should have had a tutty. That was a dime by Jalen Hurts. But tush push. Okay. I have no other fantasy takeaways. Like it's a good football game. Could see them face each other again later this season. We'll see. I guess my only other fantasy takeaway is the Chiefs are kind of Kelsey, Mahomes, and Pacheco, which is kind of what we thought going into the season anyway.
Yeah, it kind of I don't want to be the first one to say it, but I mean, I think Travis Kelce's regressed a lot more than people.
I was afraid to say it, but yeah, he's I wouldn't say a lot. He's still the tight end 1, but he's not.
He's the tight end 2 at the moment, behind
TJ
Hawkinson, just because he missed the game, and TJ Hawkinson is not at his bye yet. Kelsey's still having more points per game, but
Kelsey did have his bye. Kelsey did have his bye as well, so Kelsey's really missed 2 games.
Yeah, correct. So,
no, I think you're right. Like I feel like before the season it was automatic down the field, Kelsey, and it doesn't feel like that. But my take is that people need to get their Chiefs Super Bowl bets in right now because they're going to host the Lombardi Trophy. I am dead set on that happening. It's going to happen. They're going to go back to back. They're the dynasty. Yada yada yada. Maybe Travis Kelce.
Is that your official take? Like you're going KC over who?
Well, I have 2 official takes because I don't want the 49ers to win it. So the 49ers are going to spank whoever they face in the AFC. So I have 2 official takes. 49ers spank somebody or Chiefs beat somebody close. Pick your poison.
So you're just saying, so is your prediction then Kansas City, San Fran, and you're not sure who's going to win?
Probably, yes.
Okay.
The honest truth is, if that game happens, San Francisco should obviously win. They're the better football team. But then again, the Eagles were definitely the better football team last year, and they did not win. So
I want the people's game this year.
If we get into a situation where it's Niners Chiefs and the media's talking up the Niners, I feel like the Chiefs O-line gets all disrespected again, and then they have a great game. Like I feel like we're just going to replay last season.
I want the people's game, even though we're not. Which is Lions versus CJ Stroud, or Lions versus Dolphins. That would be the shootout of the.
Not the Bills. I feel like the Bills is a people's team.
No,
you may not like them, but
I think people are digging on the Bills since the past few weeks. After that Broncos struggle, they caught a lot of heat. Yeah,
but I think people like the Bills. They're a fun team to root for.
You know what? I'm a Jets bias. I'm sure
they're a fun team to root for, and they've never won a championship.
Okay, well, we could go for a Buffalo Detroit Super Bowl. It won't happen.
That'd be awesome. It won't happen. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
I would love for Jared Goff to win one, especially over Buffalo. That would really satisfy my heart.
I don't know who I'd root for in that one. I do like the Bills. I do like the Bills. There'd be so many tables broken. That parade alone would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
All right, I have no more fantasy takes. I don't think you have any fantasy takes either. I think we're all fantasy now.
I'm done. I'm tapped.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening and watching. And thank you for those that joined the live. We appreciate you for listening on the audio replay this. Thank you for listening to us. We appreciate that. Again, you can find the show every single week on all audio streaming platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. If you're on iTunes or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. You can also watch and listen to us on YouTube. That is where our live shows will be on Tuesday nights, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. The next show we'll be doing is a live show Sunday morning, 9 o'clock Eastern time, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter as well. Join us there so we can answer all of your fantasy football questions before kickoff of Week 12. With that said, I hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I will not be thankful to see my Seahawks play, but that's okay. But hopefully your fantasy teams do produce on Thanksgiving. So have a great holiday if you're celebrating, and we'll talk to you guys on Sunday.